independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hello there. How are you all today? Nice to have you back here through a Scottish prism. And we've got quite a show lined up for you today. I hope you're all well. And I hope you're all sitting comfortably, a wee cup of coffee there, and we're ready to go. I'm joined today by the first part of the show with two of my compadres, Jason Michaels there, and all the way over from the Emerald Isle. How are you, Jason?
All good. Ready to go, Roddy. Ready to go.
And the Paisley Mohawk himself, Mr. Iain Lawson. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon. Greetings
nice.
From the centre of the universe.
Indeed. How have you been? Have you guys been behaving yourselves for the past week?
Oh,
not at all.
No.
Yeah. You're looking fine, fettle, lads. Just for those people in the British Isles, in case you think this colour, you think it's makeup, it's something called a suntan. You're probably not familiar with it.
No.
But I hear the weather's not been great.
No,
getting better. Bit better.
Well, it's lovely today. It's lovely
Good
today.
Good stuff. Because we had to change the format of our show a wee bit, guys, didn't we? I mean, things have happened. Yeah, I had someone quoting you earlier from the show yesterday when you said that, a week in politics is a long time, Iain. It seemed that 24 hours in the case of Scottish politics is a long time.
It certainly is. I mean, I think the world has been shocked by the resignation of the National Treasurer. And the excuses are already out there. I've read this morning it's an Alba plot, which is quite unique given that the money went missing years ago, long before Alba was formed.
Allegedly.
The place was full of sleepers. The whole thing's just a complete joke. And I mean, I want to reveal in this programme this morning the duplicity that's going on, because many people, and I think, Roddy, you're going to put out the statement that came out from Kirstine. And I think we should see that, because I have an addendum.
Good. Well, can we start? A good place to start, Iain, of course, is the resignation of Donald. I don't know. I'm just going to get my tablet here just in case. I don't think there'll be anyone that hasn't seen it who's watching this show. But if you could put that up, Techie, in better, a wee bit better, so we can actually read it, so that the public can read it. But it said, if I can read it out, despite having a resounding mandate from members to introduce more transparency into the party finances, I have not received the support or financial information to carry out the fiduciary duties of National Treasurer. Regrettably, I have resigned with immediate effect. I do not intend to make a further statement on this issue. It's a hell of a resignation, an absolute bombshell.
Yeah, and then I think we should then move. I'll read it out. We should then move to what...
Yeah, I've got it here. Techie, can you stick up the statement from... and perhaps you could take us out and put that in greater writing, Techie, so the guys can read it. And Iain will read it out. The two bits...
Yeah, I'll read it out anyway. I am disappointed by Douglas's decision, and as business convener fundamentally disagree with his assessment of the support and financial information available to him. However, I respect his decision, thank him for his contribution to the NEC, and wish him well. SNP National Treasurers have access to detailed financial information and report to the NEC on a monthly basis. The NEC can request any additional information it requires. The SNP accounts are independently audited, submitted to the Electoral Commission and published. Now here's the first exclusive on this show tonight, or today, because that's what was released for public information. But secretly, and to just NEC members, there was further information offered, which mysteriously has managed to fall into my hands. And what it basically says is, expanding on the above, I am satisfied that Douglas has access to all relevant financial information in at least as much detail as all previous national treasurers. And there's the get out clause. That particular sentence will allow Kirsten, if all things go pear-shaped, to claim, I never said everything was all right. I said he had the same access as any treasurer that's went before him in recent times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. The previous treasurer was the one that lost the money. It wasn't lost on Douglas's watch. It was lost earlier under
Colin Beattie.
Colin Beattie's time.
Which brings us on nicely to the other part of the that she sent to the NEC.
Yeah, you've got it, Roddy.
Okay, it's got, given the importance of National Treasurer in post, I propose that we move immediately to fill the vacancy. At our last meeting, we decided to fill the vacancies caused by the defection of 2 office bearers to another party by appointing the person who came second in the election. I propose that we do likewise now. This would mean, assume he's willing, which I bet he is, asking Colin Beattie to fill the role. It stinks. I mean, it stunk the week before when they appointed 2 people without consulting the members. It goes against everything that was in the constitution of the party. Jason, it's just corruption. I mean, there's no other word for it. You just can't appoint people. What's to stop them asking the members who they want as their new national treasurer? Why are they going to wait till conference?
It appears to be the case that it's being run like a very badly run parish council. There are 2 young women there who cannot be unelected. They cannot be democratically removed. They keep coming back and back and back like, a piece of, dirt on the shoe, not to put too fine a point on it. Now, I mean, I'm very much in support of anyone being elected and holding a position or being appointed to a position if those are the democratic mechanisms. But when the membership have made it resoundingly clear that they do not want those individuals within, a country mile of those positions, and no one can remove these people, then something begins to stink. Mm-hmm. That before Douglas was made secretary, it was understood that he wanted Treasurer. That position. Sorry, I'm away in the clouds there. Before he was put as treasurer, it was made clear that it was to look into this issue of absent funds and the level of obfuscation that was being spoken about then. And for so many people now to take this as a hit, for him to resign certainly the way he does, should have anyone, any reasonable person now should be hearing the alarm bells ringing. Every alarm in the building is going off now.
Yeah.
Well, you would think, I mean, if you were watching this from North America, you're witnessing the suggestion that if anything happens to Joe Biden, Donald Trump should take over. Because
course, yeah.
These were other candidates that stood against, Douglas was an alternative candidate to the existing system under Colin Beattie. He was elected with a huge mandate. And the other thing we shouldn't make the mistake of doing is thinking that this has only got to do with the missing 600,000. It's much bigger than that.
No, this is...
If you look at the last accounts, as I did, there is 21 members of staff, and the salary bill in the last set of accounts was over 1.2 million. Mm-hmm. So in other words, everyone must be earning over £50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. We know for a fact that's not the case. There's lots of SNP staff earning a lot less than that. So that tells us that the people at the very top, the chief executive, perhaps, the man who's blocking access to the books, is getting paid a very, very substantial amount of money.
6 figure at least.
Well over 6 figures. Top end, well over 6 figures.
Yeah. No, it would appear that things like the missing money and the very shady democratic or less than democratic practices that we're seeing on the outside looking in are symptoms. This is symptomatic of a much more structural problem. So, yeah, I mean, I think the best word that we have in our arsenal to discuss this is the word corruption. That there is a culture of corruption that's making itself very visible to us, and it's shameful. Of course, this is an Alapa plot.
Yeah, well, can I go back to it? The fact is that I put out a tweet earlier as well, saying that we've lost 3 members of the audit committee who said they couldn't get access to the financial accounts, and the SNP hierarchy, Peter Morrell, Nicola Sturgeon never. She always has plausible deniability. She keeps to the side. Kirsten Oswald says, "Oh, that's not true. That's just not true." And now we have the National Treasurer, who was elected on a platform of wanting more transparency. I interviewed him on the Prism podcast, and I was really impressed by Douglas and his openness and his honesty and his desire to make the members more involved to see what was going on. Now, he said he can't get hold of the full accounts, but he's not telling the truth either. That's what Kirsten Oswald suggested in her letter out to the NEC. Douglas is lying. The 3 auditors, including one of them being the SNP Lord Provost of Edinburgh, is lying. One of them, a qualified accountant, is lying. And the tragedy is that so many people are actually buying into that and believing that everyone's lying except Peter Morrell and the leader, who it's just a joke.
Well, these people need to believe this. Mm. You know, I saw this yesterday on Twitter. Some of the answers back were, it is more like religion. When religion goes wrong, some of the feedback that I was getting on Twitter was some, people commenting along the lines of, somewhere deep in my bones, I feel that this is wrong, but I have to believe that it's okay. I have to trust, because if this has gone wrong, it's all over. There's no independence. This is an act of faith on the part of people who are, their intuition is telling them that this is rotten. But they are choosing. There's a deliberate act of choosing to be gullible. I have to trust because the alternatives are worse.
Let me ask you guys here. Here's the solution. If I was running the party, if I was Peter Morrell and I was coming under this sustained attack for this ring fence money that's missing, and I'm saying it's here, we've got it, it's ready in an instant, I would get a bank statement and take a photograph, please. There you go. See, there it is. 633,000. Could we now all please be quiet and move along? Surely that's what you would do if the money was there. Am I right?
This is fairly common sense. Any other public organisation that has come under this level of sustained public attack on something to do with finances would have a very long time ago shown the evidence. If you have that money, you can show it. Show it.
Yeah. The other problem we've not discussed yet is this isn't just a financial problem. No, it's a political problem. The SNP have allowed themselves to become so entirely dependent on the short money from Westminster. A lady earlier this week sent me a spreadsheet with all the money the SNP have been getting from Westminster in terms of short money. During that period, SNP salaries...
Sorry, Iain, could you explain short money for any of our viewers who do not understand what the short money is?
Yeah, sure. Basically, for each MP you have in Westminster, you're paid an allowance by Westminster that's supposed to support the activities of that MP, the research costs, administration costs, and everything. So the more MPs you have, the more money you got. Now, in my time in the SNP, when I was very active, they had perhaps 2 members of Parliament, or I think the high point was 6. Now, there was not a lot of money flowing in for that sort of number. There's now huge sums coming in. And it's that money that's allowed these very substantial increases in salary for the people at the top of the party. But what that is doing is creating a massive disincentive against pursuing independence, because it would mean losses of salary, losses of jobs. The empire would crash all around them if that was to be successful. So for that reason, what Douglas Chapman was trying to do in terms of providing transparency across the whole accounting system was absolutely necessary. It's also, by the way, quite illegal not to provide that access. If you look at company law, if you look at the Charity Commission, if you look at any of the regulations relating to financial management, it is completely out the question that you can carry on. You've got a legal duty to make public if a chief executive blocks access to the books. My dogs are going to, well, not dogs anymore. I've only got one now.
Oh, the other one got it.
They're making their usual weekly appearance. Give me 1 second. I shall return.
Well, while Iain's away strangling the dog, pet lovers, we're only kidding. I'm sure he won't be. Somebody else, Techie, could you stick up the tweet from Professor Bagpipes? Because this is one thing that the people in the NEC, all these new appointees, should actually understand and realise, that they're all liable, Jason. This is a fact. The fact you're sitting there thinking, well, that's nothing to do with me. If you're on the NEC and there is anything that's gone wrong and there's been any shenanigans, you are liable. And so if they come back and say, well, that money's got to be repaid, you will have to pay your share of the missing funds. And it's not an insignificant amount of money.
No. And I suspect the ring, okay, I would suspect if there is a habit within any institution or organisation of money disappearing under suspicious circumstances, then I would imagine, given the sum we're talking about, that this was not the first murder. It would be very rare now that you would see such large sums of money somehow just disappear from the record, have no trace turning up on the radar, etc. And for that to be the only financial indiscretion.
Yeah, I mean, there's been other rumours circulating. For example, that one of the MPs had his, Alan Smith had his money, his fees of 6-figure fees paid for out of party funds. Well, we don't know because we can't get access to the books to find out whether that's true or false. So everyone's liable. Everyone's liable.
Before I was rudely interrupted by somebody.
Is the dog still alive?
Yes, I can't control who comes to my front door during a broadcast. This is one of the problems. But I was pointing out that if you are a director of a company, if you're a senior office bearer in any organisation, and you come across a situation where the chief executive is refusing you access to the financial records you require to do the job, you are legally obliged to make that public, to report it to the body, whether it be the NEC, the board of directors, or whatever, so that they can take the appropriate action. So it's not something you can ignore in any organisation. And the other thing that makes it different in the SNP is NEC members are financially responsible, personally, for what's going on. And tomorrow,
that when you were away with the dog, that's exactly what we were talking about when you were away.
Well, tomorrow on my blog, I have a former NEC member who has decided to publicly make public her resignation letter, which relates directly to her worry about losing her house because of the reckless decisions being taken by the woke element on the NEC and how that's endangering her and her husband's only joint asset. Now, what's it coming to in the SNP when you allow people to find themselves in that position to be so threatened? It's completely and utterly wrong. And incidentally, you mentioned earlier on there, Roddy, that Nicola manages to hide away in all these things. She doesn't hide away here.
No.
This letter reveals she was present when this was being discussed.
Yeah. We also know she was there.
No action, none.
No, exactly.
So she's firmly behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, that brings me to, I mean, other people have been thrown under the bus for less. If we look back to the wonderful Michelle Thompson, who's now, glad to say, the MSP for Falkirk East, I think it is, his seat, and a great addition to our parliament. An accusation, a false accusation was made against her. That same day, Nicola had her, and Peter Merrill had her thrown out the party. Didn't want to, in case she get tainted. Natalie McGarry was lost to whip and out the party same day. As we know, our dear friend Grousebeater for a false accusation was kicked out disgustingly, as we all feel. all these people. But here we have, and someone, Techie, could you put up the Lady of Jock's tweet, where she's quite, this is what's been said in social media. She's quite right that people were thrown out of the party for less. Well, they've not suspended Peter Morrell, subject to an inquiry. Of course not. He's never going to get thrown out, is he? While we check it. But that's, the people are noticing, and the disenchantment is growing by the day. This is, I'm about to quote you as well, my friend Jason, because I think one of the best tweets on all of this, Tech, if you could put up Jason's tweet, and this is, I believe, to be a fact. Here it comes. It's like a game of Jenga. And I think, Jason, you've summed it up. This can only go on for so long. Eventually, someone's going to pull out one block too many, and I applaud you, sir, for your tweet. Well, I think the blocks are already out. We can always tell who is in power by who gets sanctioned, who is removed from the party, and who somehow is immune from any level of, public sanction. Mm-hmm. We saw who was it? The names have got me. The lad over in Stirling, everyone loves so much.
Stephen Kerr. No, the SNP fella phoning the Israeli embassy with a newly bought magazine sitting on his desk.
Alan Smith.
Alan Smith, of course. Why did I not have the name? These staged photographs that are there. And the same with the constant photo shoots of Stirling, where Sturgeon. There is a sense here of the cult of personality, and the people who are in these inner circles won't be sanctioned, don't come up for any sort of slap on the wrist publicly. But yet, I mean, the other tweet you were showing there, where people were, are chucked out of the party just for the crime of accusation. In fact, with the whole Salmond affair,
yeah, absolutely.
This was an entire an entire assault on accusation.
Yeah. Without me sounding like we feel
stuff to me.
We feel sorry for ourselves, but us in here and the other people of the Scottish Free Media who have dared to criticise the SNP and ask questions of the SNP. We've had people like that pipsqueak that's the MP for Perth and North Perthshire accusing us of being anti-independence, pro-unionist and enemies of the cause. It's like enemies of the state, which brings me on to another absolutely fabulous tweet by one of our someone we all know. Tech, if you could put up the one from Roger. It really is. And I don't know if you can really see that, but what it's saying is, it's the lessons of a cult, the denial, the refusal to look to facts, the attacking anyone that dares to talk against the leadership, hiding their revenues and hiding their accounts from the public. It's like a cult, and it's getting worse by the day. And I think I don't know what you guys think, but I think there's a lot of lights going on all over Scotland.
Well, I see an awful lot of resistance.
Of course there will be.
There are two things happening. We're not just rational beings. That there is the rational response of disbelief and anger, but then we also get to see people who admit that anger, who admit their suspicions, who wear this mask of, well, no, I'm going to stick with the party. Who's this Chancellor Chris in the Scottish Socialists? He's the best example of that level of dissonance. Who is he? The sub-secretary, the Grand Vizier of underwater basket weaving within the SNP Socialists. Who is it? He's in Eastwood. Is it Chris?
Chris McCusker.
Chris McCusker. He's the best example we have of this. He will tell you in discussion about his reservations. He'll tell you how he sees the better plan would be very much in agreement with other people critical of the situation. And then he will very quickly align himself to Nicola Sturgeon, and his answer will be, well, I have to obey orders. This is a democracy. I'm a socialist, but I have to obey orders, the Nuremberg defense, even though I see the whole thing as an entire crock of expletive. You know, I have to obey orders. You know, the other day I had to, give him a backhand slap as well, when he spoke about, had these great revelations come out sooner, I wonder how many less Tory or Unionist MSPs we would have in Holyrood. And I had to remind him publicly, saying the only reason we have those in Holyrood is the way you chose to vote and campaign against us.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the levels of dissonance, they've got to be on pills. They've got to be on pills.
Well, there is, and there's. I'm just waiting a techie sending me a couple of tweets I could read out of someone who had cognitive dissonance, was asking questions of how we're losing national treasure. It's not right, and that's Ruth Wishart, a trained and respectable journalist who throughout the campaign was attacking how unfit Alex Salmond was to be, and how bad Alba was, and how brilliant Nicola was, and how brilliant the SNP were, and how we all had to vote. And then today, Techie, stick up her tweet that she put out today. There you go. And if you can see that, how can a political party refuse that test to, Douglas Chapman has resigned, makes no sense and needs sorted? Well, Ruth, it's a bit late. We were telling you for months, and you sat silently while people like us were trying to tell the truth. I take no pleasure. I don't know about you. I know you don't, because we've had the discussion. I take no pleasure that we told the truth and that we are being proved right. And this is just this is just an indication of it, is it not? This is
sorry for cutting across there. This is yet another thing I see with, and I like Ruth Wishart. My interactions with her online are very good. She's a friendly enough lady. But one thing we see with this level of social capital is people like Ruth Wishart are deployed because people, trust her. She is a trusted voice. Mm-hmm. And even they're talking about the Alapa MPs that we have. Only yesterday, she was tweeting away saying, yes, but people never voted for them on that basis, as though this is some kind of cheat. But there is not a single political party anywhere in the United Kingdom that is elected. It's individual candidates who are elected. She understands that. We understand that. But she's choosing to obfuscate this. Mm-hmm. To say that there's been some kind of jiggery-pokery happened, that, Alapa now still has elected representatives because automatically they should resign because people never voted for them. Well, that's... she didn't worry about that when people were being reabsorbed into the National Party. That was allowed. Mm-hmm. So it's people with that level of social capital and that amount of trust who are either deliberately or, accidentally being used, to put up this smoke screen. And that's very disappointing. It's very worrying. Yeah. Anyway, I'll shut up for a second.
Well, we have double standards throughout, Iain. We've just highlighted, for example, Michelle Thompson, among others, who were quickly had the whip withdrawn because there was a hint, a sniff of wrongdoing. But this one, no, there's nothing happening. But it is the level of double standards I find, and the hypocrisy I find bad. And it brings me on quickly to another point, but still all related, because it's all about that, is that Margaret Ferrier, who we know the story behind that, she was, from what I've heard, and I don't want to preempt because it's an ongoing case, but her defence, but she indicated she wasn't feeling well, but she was told she had to go to Westminster anyway to make her speech that she was meant to make. She was down, she had a test before she left, she got there, found out she was positive, went to the authorities, asked what she should do, told to go home, she did. And Margaret and Nicola went ballistic and took the nuclear option. Techie, could you stick up that article in the Times where the anger of Nicola, that it was just how angry she is with Margaret Ferrier, and she had to resign, and when she didn't resign, she was kicked out of the party, and Nicola's private police and prosecutors went after her, and that's what they are now. And yet this week, Iain, the Greens, her woo-woo partners, her woo-hoo, they were all caught in a pub. They're all caught in a pub having a bevy in Edinburgh.
Yep.
I don't hear Nicholas saying anything.
Call off the coalition.
Exactly.
Drop everything. We can't possibly deal with these people.
Correct.
Disgraceful.
Nothing.
Not at all. None of it.
No.
But that's the way Nicola operates. It's one rule for her little gang, different rule entirely for the middle ground, and then absolute aggression and intimidation for those who dare to question her. You know, it works for so long.
This is
It
how
will
any
eventually
personality cult works.
collapse.
I couldn't find it appertaining to this thing with the Greens. Someone put up a great tweet, and I apologise to them for not being able to put it up here today, which said, if the Greens, a word of advice to the Greens, if they're going to get into a joint venture with the SNP, don't have a joint bank account, which I thought was topical, hysterical, and tweet of the week. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the problem, the hypocrisy, double standards. And as I say, I mean, you're meant to believe, if you follow the SNP, that pro-independence bloggers are unionist plants. That
this is something we have to keep driving home. That this is about integrity and it's about transparency.
Correct.
You know, that it has been programmed into the followership of the SNP. People, you know, I have no great, you know, dislike for, you know, these are our friends. But we have to keep reminding these people who've bought this party line that any criticism is, you be quiet, any criticism is, you know, a bad thing, that it's, you know, a lack of loyalty or disloyalty. But our job is to make sure that we have transparency, that we have accountability. And if no other media in Scotland is doing that, then we have a moral obligation to do that. Because we cannot have an independence movement led by, you know, most positive spin on this is we've just got this wrong. We're just reading all the facts wrong, that these people are as pure as the driven snow.
Yeah,
you know,
but the thing is, it's not just that.
Where there's no accountability.
But it's not just one thing, Jason. It's the fact that
there's a lot of things.
Yeah, of course. Like, an innocent man is guilty, even though a jury has found him innocent. He's guilty because I say he's guilty. Not that the evidence doesn't. I do. So you've all got to believe it. That a man that's called himself a woman is a woman. You've got to believe it, or you're in big trouble if you don't believe it. It's, you know, that all these things and they believe it. I mean, I was writing something I can't the other day, and I go, but you're a pro-indie blogger, so it's a lie. Right, yeah. And yet, when you say, well, can you produce a lie? They can't. They can't produce. Because,
well, you see, this is how this sort of dissonance works. They don't believe it. They know we are telling the truth. They're not stupid people. They're looking at the facts, but you know, they're choosing to disbelieve the evidence of their eyes and their ears. Because their fear is that if Nicola Sturgeon is a cheat and she's wrong, and that this is, you know, a quote-unquote cabal, and that this all comes down like a house of cards, then independence is over, the politics of Scotland is over, Attila the Hun will come back, we'll all be in prison forever, and the sun will never rise again. That's what they believe. Well, so they are willing to ignore the evidence because Nicola, even though she's you know, we had this in Ireland with, you know, people like Charlie Haughey, you know, the idea that, he's a cute hooer, you know, he's a bad guy, he's a lovable rogue, but we've got to love him because he's our lovable rogue. And this is what they're doing with the SNP, and this is a massive, massive problem. And if people don't wake up to this, we're scuffling.
Iain, can I ask you to clarify a point for me? Someone sent me a message and asked, when you were talking about the short money, could we just be clear here? The people who are employed by the MPs directly at Westminster, their SPADs and advisors, that their wages are not included in the SNP accounts because that is separate from party funds. Could you just clarify that for them?
No, the figure that I'm talking about and the wage bill that I'm talking about is the staff, the 21 staff employed at headquarters. Correct. All the other staff that work for MPs or MSPs or are based at Westminster, they're all accounted for separately.
Okay, guys.
This is the central funds of the party.
We're coming towards the end of this section, and I need you to stay. On with our special guest Mark Hirst to help me have a wee chat with Mark about our plan. But just on this, finishing off on this note, is this the final part of the Jenga, or is there more to come? Will this bring them down?
Well,
or do you think?
No. Just very quickly, as I was saying to you earlier, when we're talking about these sums of money, this is unlikely to be a first offence.
Well, it should bring them down. It should definitely result in an investigation at some point. If you read how it's all presented, and politicians are very good at making it sound as if there's some very big, thorough investigation being carried out by the Electoral Commission or whatever on the SNP's finances. All an auditor does is check whether the money that was there, it could have been spent. That would satisfy the auditor. It could all be gone, spent. That would get ticked off by the auditor. That's not what the issue is here. The issue is here, there was ring fence money put in, supposedly only to be used on IndyRef 2. If it's no longer there, it's no longer available to be used in IndyRef 2. And that is a serious breach of trust in terms of how the money was raised, and that would be, but it's not something that an auditor would pick up on. He would only identify if the funds were still in the accounts. And quite clearly from the last set of accounts, that money's no longer there.
Correct.
Now, I mean, the SNP may be saying, oh, well, we've got a £500,000 overdraft facility that we can go to if something happens. That's not the same as what they promised about ring fencing the money. And that's the breach of trust. And that's why people are right to question it. And I noticed an interesting tweet from somebody that was watching saying he's now got his money back, but he had to threaten, for 48 hours going to the police. So that's a change of policy by Peter Murrell, because up until recently, they were refusing everything. Nobody could get their money back. So it's very, very interesting now that the pressure's building on them, that they've changed the policy. And if you make enough noise and if you threaten to go to the police, they'll give you the money because they don't want to see complaints building up.
Yep.
But that doesn't solve the problem. They should never have done it in the first place. It was completely and utterly wrong, and they deserve to be punished for it.
They do. Now, guys, we're coming to the end here, but I'd like to do a quick segue in, if you like, because you're staying, Jason. You're not going. No, this section's over. We've been discussing, because this is all part of the one big thing of intimidation as part of attacking people who question what's happened recently to this Tuesday, for example. Craig Murray is about to go to prison. It looks very like him. And what's happened to Alec? What happened to Grousebeater? What's happened to the girl Marion Miller? The disgusting case of that poor woman. And we've had a decision to do something about that, as you know. And we're going to discuss that with our next guest, which is I'm immediately glad to welcome to the show Mark Hirst, a person who's been on here before, but the first time the viewers have been able to see you. How are you, Mark?
Not bad. Roddy, yourself? Everyone?
Life's so enjoyable. I should have a twin to share it. Some of that joy. It's that good. It's enhanced if you're here, Mark. So you've been through the wars. We've had a wee chat about that, but how are you now? Are you feeling a bit better, a bit more relaxed, easier, or are you still worried about a knock on the door?
Not so much. I mean, I think obviously I was quite elated after the acquittal verdict and the Crown case collapsing completely. We're now, as you may be aware, we're now preparing, the legal team's preparing to bring an action against both Police Scotland and the Crown Office for malicious prosecution. Obviously, it comes in the wake of these other cases involving the Rangers liquidators. And in fact, there's another malicious prosecution action being raised as well. So it's still kind of rumbling on, but obviously at the current point, we are now on the offensive. What happened to me, I think, a number of kind of independent commentators were suggesting this was about sending a message. If it was about destroying reputations, as they've done with Alex Salmond and others, and if they can get a conviction, if they can try and jail someone, well, that's just a bonus. The main thrust of this action, I think, which is being orchestrated and directed by the Crown Office, is to destroy reputations, to put people out of the game for political reasons, and that's what they're doing. So we must do all we can to resist that. I don't think there's no evidence that I've seen that they feel in any way taken aback by my acquittal, by Alex Salmon being found not guilty. You know, if anything, I think they feel emboldened to continue going because they know they've got the political cover from the current political establishment and leadership of the SNP, and that's going to be a worry, I think, to all of us in the Yes movement going forward.
Can I just say, what was the phrase? It was a documentary. Am I right? Is it a documentary you made or a video vlog where you uttered some words that was what they charged you with? What were the actual words that they came after you on?
Well, it was a 2-minute, 36-second video that I recorded in a field miles from anyone, which they initially said was threatening behaviour. But they changed that charge because there wasn't a hope of them at all getting a conviction. So they changed it to what's known as a Section 38, which is essentially a breach of the peace, which has the lowest threshold you need of any criminal charge to secure a conviction on. And obviously, they couldn't manage that either. And the phrases that were picked out by the Procurator Fiscal during my trial were, "will reap a whirlwind," which is obviously a biblical origin, a phrase of biblical origin. We decided in the end, on the day of the trial, for me not to give evidence. But the irony would have been that I would have had to swear on a Bible which contains the very phrase that the prosecutor was trying to jail me on. So it was ridiculous. I mean, even during the course of the trial, obviously the only evidence that was led was the video itself. And after that was played in the court, the sheriff said to the Procurator Fiscal, "Is that it, Mr. Matheson?" To which he had to say yes, but he was happy to have it played again, and the sheriff just dismissed this out of hand. He said, this is ridiculous. And he concluded that no reasonable person could have been offended in any way by the comments that were made in the video, which obviously states really that those who made the original complaints are not reasonable people. And we know that anyway because of various other aspects. So it was thrown out.
I mean, when you were making that, you didn't think, "Oh, I wonder if this is a wee bit risky to say, reap a whirlwind." I mean, it wouldn't cross your mind that was going to be, get you ending up in court.
It's all. I mean, every phrase that was used is common political parlance, and one of the things that we presented in court was a list where those exact phrases that were used in the video are used all the time in Westminster, in Holyrood. Even Nicola Sturgeon herself has used those phrases from time to time. So obviously...
it's biblical then. If she used it, it must be biblical.
Indeed. The blessed Nicola.
But that's the thing. And it's about a lot of money you spent on your defence for that ridiculous charge. You must have had to spend a lot of money. You don't have to give us the exact amount, but a lot of money to defend yourself on that stupid charge.
Well, yeah, I mean, this goes back to the state of justice, actually, in Scotland, in fact, across the UK. I mean, I was interested to note that Channel 4 had a very interesting interview with a guy, I think he's called Judge Rinder, it's the UK equivalent of the Judge Judy thing, in which he was saying, we don't have a proper functioning justice system, and thereby a functioning democracy, if you can't have access to justice when a wrong is committed against you. And that's down to the fact that, to engage in any action, to even secure a reasonable defence team, you have to spend a lot of money. So we have this divide between rich and, well, basically the rich and virtually the majority of the rest of the population, where they can't access a recourse in terms of justice because they're denied that because of the cost. Now, so what I did was I crowdfunded. I took advice from people who had done it before, and I crowdfunded to have a reasonable defence. And it's a lot of money. It's not cheap. It was we set a target. I knew the estimated cost would be around £20,000, and we actually raised that through donations and pledges within 4 days. I mean, thankfully, due to the generosity of the Yes movement, we've done that. Obviously, I'm on the offensive. I'm taking legal action for this malicious prosecution. But again, there's no there's no source of money, there's no pot of money that you can access to do that. You have to do it yourself. I mean, I was kind of conscious with this second fundraiser. Obviously, my criminal defence, I don't get awarded costs just because the case is completely thrown out by the court. But this, I was conscious that the Crown, the Yes movement is constantly, almost it seems constantly being tapped for money when to defend these ridiculous actions being brought. So this one, because we're very confident that we'll win. My aim is from, obviously, if I win, I will be awarded a proportion of the cost, but not the full cost of bringing the action. And from any associated damages that we expect to secure, then I'll repay everyone who's made a donation once we win the case, which is, like I say, we're confident that we'll do. So there'll be a major development actually towards the end of the week. As people know, Gordon Dangerfield's representing me at the moment, so worthwhile keeping an eye open towards the end of the week on terms of more progress and developments in that case.
We did hope to have Gordon on here, but due to a technical hitch at Gordon's end, for once not our end, we were unable to do that, ladies and gentlemen. But you've just said, the generosity of the Yes movement, and they're always getting tapped up. Well, guess what, folks? You're about to get tapped up again, because my two erstwhile amigos here and myself, we had a long discussion. We've been thinking about, Mark, and I'd like to run this past you, is that we need, for example, looking at Marion Miller, the girl, the single parent with two autistic children, who is being hounded just now for some tweet. We don't even know yet what the tweet is. It could be as ridiculous as your Reap the Whirlwind. I don't know Marion personally. I don't know if anyone else does here, but we hope that she has legal representation and that she can afford it, and the best that there's available. But that's the problem. And with the hate crime bill now in place, and what's going on with the lack of separation between executive and judiciary in Scotland, and it is unique, there'll be more of these prosecutions coming down. So we propose, if the public, and you're listening in, folks, is to set up a central fund. And in that central fund, we want to pay into so that anyone who is subject to these malicious prosecutions will be able to access legal representation. We're also looking to find some of you lawyers out there who are willing to go against the establishment and are willing to put what's right before your career, if you like, because it will be difficult for you. So we'd like to get a central fund with a board of trustees who will decide which ones they're going to go after and help. And if someone like yourself wins their case and wins some damages, we would also be hoping that they would make a nice wee contribution towards the fund for the next person coming along. Now, this is a concept we've got, and it's still a concept. Do you think that's a worthwhile thing, Mark, and something worth progressing?
Well, it is. I mean, obviously, for someone who, in my circumstance, obviously, when I realised, once I got over the sense of disbelief that, I was being actually actively pursued for these comments, was, well, how on earth are you going to fund it? For many people, there's no way they could do it. And in fact, I wouldn't have been able to defend the action and had the legal team that I ended up securing if it hadn't been for those funds. So I think it is important. I think it's a desperately sad and revealing commentary on the state of Scottish justice system that we're having to contemplate this. Mm-hmm. But I think it is necessary. There are pros and cons to having such a fund, obviously. I think Gordon was perhaps going to speak about this today, but obviously once legal action is underway, it's very difficult to politicise elements of that. That it would be for Gordon to articulate, some of the concerns there. But, the other aspect is having a board of trustees who carry the confidence of the movement as well. And there are cases, which, we might, a board of trustees might not want to support, but nonetheless, where do those people go? I think there's a bigger question here beyond simply having a defence fund that just pays out no matter what. There has to be an element of responsibility in what you say, and what actions you take. But equally, I think we need a bigger debate, and I wonder if this is something that might be that goes hand in hand, that we might formally petition the Scottish Parliament to look again at how the justice system is funded, especially for those of us, the majority of us, who are just on average wage, or don't have we're basically not rich, basically, because we have a two-tier system at the moment that needs desperately addressed.
Well, I think that's a great idea, except for one problem with that, Mark, asking the Scottish Parliament. It's actually the government of the Scottish Parliament that are abusing the system and who are helping bring these false prosecutions, because there's no division between executive and judiciary. That's the problem that's causing these prosecutions.
I've brought 2 petitions to the Scottish Parliament, which basically calls on the Scottish government to take action. I'm not terribly impressed by the quality and substance of a lot of the MSPs. I'll be blunt about that, but it does allow the issue to be raised. It's a device in many ways to get it into the public consciousness, regardless of what the MSPs end up ultimately doing. I've been surprised with some of the petitions that I've brought previously that have had success, that you can actually build the momentum to do that. But going back to the core thing of establishing a fund, yes, I do think it's important and probably at this time necessary, because I'm under no illusions in my own mind that the Crown Office are going to persist in these actions, these malicious actions.
Jason, would you like to give us your thoughts on this?
Well, the law is the narrative of power. When this happened to me, when I ended up being called, an IRA sympathiser, an anti-Semite, a Holocaust denier, all on the same day, I got in touch with a very trusted lawyer, and he spelt it out to me in very stark terms as, you don't stand a snowball's chance in hell. You go to court, you don't have the money, you're going to lose. The best thing to do is duck your head down and hope this goes away. That's justice in Scotland, because justice is not, and this is my problem with the independence, the independence that, we're being sold, that this is a very upper middle class independence for the benefit of the upper middle class, and it's for them that the judiciary exists to serve and protect their place and privilege. It's not for ordinary working people, and it's there that when we become a challenge to the powers of the prevailing system that exists, when we become a challenge to them, they will use the law against us, knowing full well that we do not stand a chance against the law. It's there to keep us out of power. That's why the law exists in every society. That's not a mystery. And
the mega rich.
The mega rich, absolutely.
Can bully even the rich.
Well, this is it.
Let me tell you very quickly a story that's not well known in Scotland. You might remember Bob Maxwell, the pension fame. Sir Michael Hirst, the Tory chairman in Scotland.
No relation.
Michael Hirst accused him of all the things, and Maxwell took him to court, threatened to destroy him financially, and racked up a huge bill for Michael Hirst, to the point that Michael Hirst had to stop and withdraw and apologise to Bob Maxwell. And 6 months later, it all came out. Everything Hirst had been saying was true. Maxwell was a crook. He'd offed with the pension funds, exactly as Hirst had accused him of. And very few people know that in Scotland. But if someone like Sir Michael Hirst, who was relatively wealthy, could be bullied financially by the system, then it tells you just how vulnerable people with much lower salaries are.
Power obfuscates itself. The object of power is to be hidden. In any liberal democratic society, the people with the power are the ones you're not seeing. We look at the elected, representatives, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and we think these are the people elected into power. No, they are elected to serve the people who have power. That's what the bureaucratic state is. These are the servants of the power holders. Real power is hidden, and that's hidden behind this entire facade and layers of the judiciary, the political system, of bureaucracy that exists in order to protect society as it exists, which isn't to our benefit.
No.
I don't know. I don't let me go off on one, Roddy.
I'm going to try not to. Mark, the thing is that the people who are bringing these malicious prosecutions, and I go back to this lack of separation from when the Lord Advocate's sitting in the cabinet every week or every day, they've got unlimited funds. When they go after you or Craig or Alec or poor Marion Miller, they don't have to worry about the bills. They've got tons of money. They're unlimited. And I mean, you were talking about the Rangers. Here's the ironic thing about it. I'm hearing that bill could get as much as £120 million that the Scottish government are going to have to pay out to the liquidators of Rangers. And if they'd just given that money to the Rangers in the first place, there would have been no liquidation. What I mean? But that's another story for another day. But they've got unlimited amounts of money. And the fact that they're paying out 120 million there, the other one there's going on is, I believe it's Cash My Check, a guy who had a business for about 40 or 50 years, who was called a crook and a rogue and everything else. His business got his malicious prosecution against him. He too's got it seems like a penalty kick. But there's no financial penalty for the people who are behind this, is there, in the Scottish Government?
No, because we have a completely, the former late Jock Thompson QC described as an institutionally corrupt Crown Office. And until we have, there is a review. I think the SNP in their manifesto have committed to a review of the Crown Office and its functions. It needs absolute fundamental reform. And, now, this should have happened years ago, but a divide between the head of the prosecution service and the Scottish Government is absolutely imperative to that. But it has to go beyond that as well. There's no transparency. That there is no. In my own case, in the action that we're planning, for example, the Rangers liquidators have actually settled out of court. I think the fear that the Crown Office have is that precedent is established that opens the floodgates on malicious prosecutions. Certainly, if, as we expect, mine goes all the way to the Court of Session, I will be the first person in Scottish history to have successfully sued the Crown. There was a major judgment towards the end of last year, which has turned everything on its head, because previously it was believed that the Crown was effectively immune from prosecution. And we now know that isn't the case. I mean, that's what's really driven forward the case with David Whitehouse and Paul Greer and the other liquidators in that. It's not had much publicity either, but it is significant. I mean, I can only think of, imaginary Caribbean banana republics where the official state prosecutor is admits to, not only found guilty of, but admits to acting in a malicious way against its own citizens. What kind of banana state has Scotland become when that is happening? It should be on the news day in, day out. It's an absolute scandal that that's happening, and we have a compliant mainstream media that are taking very little interest in it. It's shocking.
Yeah, it is, and it's going to get worse. But in the short term, you're needing to win your case to, as you say, set this precedent that the Crown can be taken to court and be defeated, which must be making Prince Andrew somewhat nervous, I would think. But that's another story for another day, I would imagine. And when will your case go to court, Mark? If it goes the full way?
The papers have been prepared, so the writs are in place, and they'll be getting served towards the end of the week. Gordon and myself are preparing separate articles, which we'll publish towards the end of this week. It depends on court. There are we're at the discretion of the court in terms of when the case will be heard. But we're aiming to go ahead towards it'll be this year, so I would imagine September, October. Unfortunately, I'd like to see justice move a little bit quicker. As you may recall, my house was raided by police on April the 20th last year, and my case wasn't heard until the 7th of January this year. So, I'd like to see justice moving a little bit quicker, but I'm at the mercy of the courts.
Yeah, we're coming towards the end, guys, but we shouldn't let this, while we're discussing this, go without passing comment on the likelihood is that Craig Murray, it's Tuesday, I believe, is going back. He's likely going to end up with prison time. That seems to be the word on the street, that he's not going to avoid that, which I think is an utter disgrace. While people who revealed a lot more, and if Crown Office is listening and you don't want to hear, Garavelli, have a look at her stuff, said a lot more than Craig did. And I think it's a disgrace. I mean, I grew up as a child believing Scots law and was so proud of it. Now I'm almost embarrassed about it. And it really does need reforming. So it's up to you, the viewers who are watching this, to spread the word. And my colleagues here and I will be writing articles on that about promoting this idea of a central fund with board trustees. And can I just say this? When we say the money will be ring-fenced, it will be ring-fenced. There will be no ifs,
maybe find another term. I think that's
we'll not use the ring-fenced term. And this commission that you're talking about, the Parliament or the SNP are talking about setting up, sounds like a job for Councillor Graham Campbell or Rhiannon Spear. One of the two will probably get it if they're setting it up. So, gentlemen, with that, I want to thank you for your participation today. I'd like to
having us.
Well, it's been great having you. It's always a pleasure seeing you guys. And to you, our viewers, thank you for watching us. And if you've got any other comments you'd like to make, you know where to get us. Tell us what you think. And until we speak to you all again, I want you all to take care now. Bye.
Bye from the dogs.
And anti-Westminster rule, everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.